All right. Hey, what's going on? Today, we are going to be talking about audiology key performance indicators or KPIs, managing by the numbers. This is a super important topic that, even though it's not sexy, it can make a huge difference in how your business is operating and how successful your practice is being. So let's jump into it. I think it's really important that if we're going to spend time and energy and effort on something like tracking key performance indicators, we have a good sense of why it is that we're doing it. Obviously, the really high level reason is that we're providing data about our clinic's performance. We're also allowing ourselves the opportunity to track improvements or decreases in performance over time. We can make more informed business decisions, and we have data about individual providers' performances for better management and training. Okay, so let's talk about this. If we're not tracking our KPIs, which I'm always shocked how many audiologists I talk to who don't track their KPIs, what are you doing? Probably if you're the practice owner, you're managing by your bank account. Do we have enough money in the bank to pay payroll? We are managing by how many units did we sell this month, which means that you are, one, you're being reactive, meaning that if you see a decrease in units, that is when you decide, oh, we need to do more marketing. We need to, find out a way to get more patients into the clinic. Maybe we need to send a database letter. But maybe if you were actually tracking your numbers, you would see that we had plenty of candidates this month, but our conversion rate was only 50%. So if we could increase our conversion to 60, 65, 70%, we would easily hit our numbers without needing to spend any more money on marketing. So instead of marketing, really what we want to focus on is how are we doing at educating our patients before they come into the clinic? How are we doing it pre-marketing ourselves before the patients come in? How is our consultation process? How are my providers doing at managing objections, right? So if we're not tracking all the data, if we're not tracking the numbers, and we're trying to make adjustments based off of just a couple of high level lagging metrics, meaning metrics like units is the outcome of all the stuff that you do leading up to the patient coming in, right? Units is not a good number to manage your practice off of because there are so many things that can lead to your unit sales going down. But if you're managing conversion, if you're managing average sales price, you're managing each individual provider's performance, if you're seeing how many consultations are coming in, how many are coming with a companion, etc., you can have a lot more details and data about what's happening in your practice. So you know specifically what it is that you need to be working on. Okay, so what are the metrics that we actually need to track inside of our hearing care practice? There are a couple here. So these are kind of base level. We need to know how many candidates we're seeing every month, how many of those candidates did we help, which then in turn is going to tell us our conversion rate. We need to know how many units were sold, what our average sales price, and then what our net hearing aid revenue was. This is like baseline, okay? If you're not tracking these things, then you really don't know what's happening in your clinic. So at minimum, we need to track these things. Some other things that I like tracking are referral source. Where did our patients come from? Did they come with a companion? Some of the, like, for example, I have friends who are audiology practice owners who they get a lot of referrals from physicians, but their conversion rate with physician referrals is like 30%, whereas their practice-wide conversion rate with all their other referral sources might be 70%. So you're working so hard seeing these physician referral patients, and they're probably even dumping a lot of time and energy and money into marketing to physicians, but then only 30% of those are converting to hearing aid patients, which, if you're a diagnostic facility and you want to see those diagnostic patients, cool, but at least right? At least you have the data. So we want to separate them out. And I do have a spreadsheet inside the OddFlow community that you can actually download as a template and use in your clinic. Inside of my clinic, I know that our OMS systems will track your KPIs to an extent, but the problem with using your OMS is it's a garbage in, garbage out situation. So if you're not really doing a great job of putting all your data in really accurately, then it can be hard to trust what you're getting out. So in my clinics, we actually have a separate spreadsheet where we're manually tracking all of our KPIs. So with managed care, the things that we need to be looking at if we're seeing these patients, we need to separate them and track them separately so that we can measure their fitting fees and fitting fees per unit. And then we want to see how many covered appointments we're seeing with these patients, because that's going to tell us now, like, for example, with True Hearing, if we're having to see them for a year and we're getting paid $600 and on average we're seeing those patients for 5 visits, we're making $120 a visit. Does that work with your break even for your practice or does it not? Right. So it allows us to manage that. What we found in my practice is that we have to be more diligent about limiting the follow-up care. We're not able to do the same amount of follow-up care with these patients that we can with our private pay patients. The numbers just don't make sense. But if you don't track the numbers, you're just kind of making assumptions and you're not basing it off of actual data. So again, I recommend using a separate spreadsheet or a separate tool to track your KPIs outside of your OMS. If you're solo, just like your chart notes, just make it part of your daily process. Like as soon as you write your note, if it was an opportunity appointment, input that opportunity into your KPI spreadsheet or KPI tracker. Same thing with your staff. This needs to be something that you're managing. If you have staff audiologists, they should be required to put those candidates into the KPI tracker daily. And the KPI tracker should be low friction, meaning like all you should have to put in as the provider is basic information about the opportunity. Did they have a companion? Where did they come from? Did they buy hearing aids? Yes or no? How many units? What was the total price? And then your spreadsheet should just auto calculate everything for you, so you're not having to do a lot of manual work to actually make the KPI tracker work. So with this, a lot of people are like, oh, that's so much extra work, I don't want to do it. But for something that's so high leverage in your practice, like I was talking about, this is the thing that's telling us what do we need to work on? What do we need to be spending our time, energy, and effort on? And this is such a low, I mean, you're talking like maybe 5 minutes a day to actually do this. And, even if you're behind for the year, go back, we've got 5 months in the year, just go back and update your entire year so you know what's happening in the year. And then going forward, just make it happen. Here are some of the problems that I see with people's KPIs. So one of the biggest things is that most clinics do a pretty poor job of defining what a candidate or an opportunity appointment actually is, or like one provider will define it differently than another provider. So then you're not comparing apples to apples. And so it's crucially important that we know who a candidate is and who a candidate is not. And that might be specific to your clinic, but it needs to be like clearly written out in black and white. These are our metrics that we're looking at. Obviously, getting behind, it's like anything, you get behind and you get lazy about it, and then you just kind of let it fall by the wayside. You can't do that. And then I see some providers, and this can especially be true for staff providers who are trying to make their numbers look better. They'll kind of make up their own rules about who they are or are not going to add to their KPI tracker. And so then you end up again where you're not really it becomes a vanity metric thing more than an actual useful source of data. So like I tell my team, even if it looks bad, like even if we had somebody come in and they weren't super motivated or they're a physician referral or whatever, we still need to put them in the KPI tracker because that's data, that's information. It's telling us what's happening inside of our practice. And this is a management thing. We need to make sure to like be doing a good job coaching our team to make sure that they're adding everybody who's a candidate so we can have accurate data that we're tracking. So these are our standards that we use in our clinic. So if you're trying to come up with your own standards for who's a candidate, you can just steal mine. In our practice, if they are not currently wearing hearing aids and they have at least 2 thresholds, 35 dB or greater, that's a candidate. If they have tinnitus, even if they have tinnitus with normal hearing and um, amplification could be a tool that's used in tinnitus treatment, that's considered a candidate. Same thing with like hidden hearing loss or a normal audiogram with an abnormal Klickson or speech and noise test. We'll consider those a candidate because as we're finding with more of the data, many of these patients could benefit from the processing capabilities of hearing aids. And then we also consider patients in 4+ year old hearing aids to be candidates, which means, and this is the biggest one that I see people kind of fudging, in our clinic, if somebody comes in for a clean and check appointment and they have 5-year-old hearing aids, that clean and check is an opportunity appointment. Every time they come in the clinic, if they have 4-year-old or older hearing aids, that's an opportunity appointment. They are a candidate. So that needs to go on the KPI tracker. Even if they're coming in like, multiple times a year, that person is now multiple opportunity appointments on your schedule. So for our OddFlow folks, we've made it super easy. Inside of the OddFlow community page, there is a KPI tracker template that you can just simply make a copy of and download yourself and start using. And all the formulas and everything already work. So if you're not already, I would encourage you to download that tracker template and get started tracking your KPIs. And that's it for today. Shoot me an email or message if you have any questions, and I'll see you on the next call.